2 miles beneath the most lifeless, wind-swept expanse on Earth, something stirs. A vast lake, completely sealed off from the surface for over 15 million years, waits in utter darkness. No light, no air, no contact. Lake Vostok is the closest thing we have to an alien ocean, and it's right here on Earth. But as scientists drilled toward it, strange readings began to surface: magnetic distortions, temperature spikes, and finally, silence. Something, or someone, doesn't want us going any deeper, and what lies beneath may be far more than water. In the heart of Antarctica, hidden beneath 2.5 miles of solid glacial ice, lies a world no one was meant to see. Lake Vostok was first hinted at in 1959, when Russian scientists noted odd seismic echoes beneath the surface. But it wasn't until satellite radar imaging in the 1990s that the true scale was revealed. A freshwater lake, the size of Lake Ontario, completely sealed beneath the East Antarctic ice sheet. An ancient lockbox, preserved in sub-zero isolation for epochs. No sunlight has touched its surface since mammoths walked the Earth. No life, at least not surface life, has ever entered. It is Earth's oldest untouched ecosystem, if you can call it that. And yet, something about Lake Vostok doesn't sit right. NASA referred to it as a natural laboratory for life in extreme environments. But others, behind closed doors, whispered something more ominous: that the lake was not just isolated, it was protected. That something beneath the ice had never wanted to be disturbed. In 1996, the Russian team at Vostok station began to drill. The mission was scientific, a quest to sample water that had been trapped for eons. But almost immediately, the operation encountered problems. Sensors began to behave erratically, temperatures dropped and spiked for no reason, and strange magnetic pulses were recorded near the drill shaft. Some scientists brushed it off as quirks of the environment, but others weren't so sure. One sensor recorded a consistent low-frequency signal, a pulsing vibration rising from the depths. It wasn't geological, it wasn't random, it sounded rhythmic. And then, in 1998, the drilling abruptly stopped. Russia cited environmental concerns, the risk of contaminating a pristine ecosystem. But insiders suggested something else: a sudden blackout of data, restricted access, and an internal report that simply vanished. From that moment, Lake Vostok ceased to be just a lake. It became a secret. Officially, operations resumed years later with new sterilized equipment, but what they found only deepened the mystery. The lake's water, they discovered, isn't just cold. It's under such immense pressure that it remains liquid, even without a source of geothermal heat. There is no oxygen, no light, and no known energy source to support life. Yet signs of life were detected. In 2012, when the Russian team finally breached the lake and recovered the first samples, the world waited, and heard almost nothing. The official report stated that the mission was successful, but no photos, no unredacted data, only silence. Unofficially, rumors began to circulate that traces of unknown microbial DNA were found, sequences that didn't match any terrestrial database, that samples contained thermophilic organisms, bacteria that thrive in extreme heat, in a lake that should be impossibly cold, that when tested in labs, the organisms responded to electromagnetic fields, as if adapting in real time. Some claimed contamination, others suggested something ancient, something older than modern life, had survived. Then things turned stranger. At Vostok Station, multiple crew members began reporting erratic behavior. Equipment malfunctioned for no reason. Hard drives corrupted. One scientist claimed he experienced sudden auditory hallucinations, low-pitched voices repeating unfamiliar words. Another wrote in a private journal, later leaked, that something down there knows we're watching. 5 days after the final borehole made contact with the lake, Vostok Station went silent. All communications ceased. No emergency signal, no word from the crew. Then, without explanation, the station re-established contact. The statement they issued was brief: "We have reached the lake. All operations nominal." But they released no evidence, no footage, no water samples, no proof. Other countries, including the US, submitted formal requests for data. They were denied. Lake Vostok had become a classified zone of research. One American scientist, speaking anonymously, claimed their satellite team was asked to limit imaging frequency over the area. Another insider suggested that electromagnetic interference from beneath the lake had disrupted their ground-penetrating radar. Some began referring to the region as the Antarctic Bermuda Triangle. Others called it a gateway, a sealed vault hiding something the ice was meant to keep. To this day, the Russian government maintains tight control over Vostok Station, and Lake Vostok remains one of the most restricted natural sites on Earth. No independent verification of the lake samples has ever been published, and multiple international inquiries have gone unanswered. So, what's really under the ice? A primordial life form untouched by evolution? A magnetic anomaly tied to the Earth's interior? Or something no one, not scientists, not governments, is prepared to acknowledge? In 2001, a now declassified U.S. intelligence document described Lake Vostok's sector as having strategic surveillance potential, whatever that means. But the wording was deliberate, and the data, redacted. Today, the drilling continues under new pretexts: glaciological studies, climate data recovery, subglacial mapping, but all efforts remain under lock and key, sealed beneath 2 miles of silence. Whatever they found in Lake Vostok, the world is not allowed to know. Beneath the ice, something moved. Not tectonic, not glacial, but deliberate. That was the phrase found in one Russian engineer's notebook. Deliberate, not mechanical, deliberate. It started with the signals, faint, rhythmic pulses that no one could quite explain, detected by seismic monitors, echoing from far beneath the borehole. They repeated every 18 minutes, too regular for natural origin, too weak to triangulate. When analyzed, the signal resembled no known geological activity. It wasn't a tremor, it wasn't ice movement. It was more like a low-frequency sonar, like something was scanning. Initially, the Russian team dismissed it as interference, perhaps from magnetic flux near the South Magnetic Pole. But the readings persisted, and then they changed. As the drill approached the final ice layers, the signal shifted pitch. It accelerated. They weren't just drilling into ice, they were waking something. Vostok Station began logging anomalies in early February 2012. Deep within their borehole sensors, a pressure spike registered without any apparent cause. Then, a sudden temperature drop, over 20 degrees in less than an hour. The ice, which should have been warming slightly from equipment heat, was cooling. Against all thermodynamic logic, communications logs reveal that during this time, the crew ceased regular check-ins. For nearly 72 hours, there were no outgoing transmissions. Then came a garbled burst of radio static. A message was embedded in it. 4 words in broken Russian. It watches from below. The message was dismissed as a technical glitch, but among the team, fear had taken root. One geophysicist wrote in his private log, later leaked through a whistleblower site, "The lake speaks in pulses. We are not alone under the ice." Whether it was metaphor or mental collapse, no one knows, but it wasn't the only journal to mention hearing things. Multiple crew members described audio hallucinations, deep-toned chimes. Others reported strange dreams filled with flickering lights under a frozen ocean. One researcher abruptly quit the expedition and was airlifted out, reportedly after a panic attack that involved him screaming about the lights in the water. Official reports say he suffered from hypoxia, but behind the scenes his departure was recorded as psychoacoustic destabilization. To this day, that term has never appeared in any published Antarctic research. What exactly were they hearing? In March of 2012, just after drilling resumed, something unprecedented occurred. A secondary signal began broadcasting, higher in frequency, pulsing faster. This time it wasn't seismic, it was electromagnetic. It appeared only at night, and only within a 3-kilometer radius of the borehole. Outside that zone, nothing could be detected. A visiting technician from a European monitoring station, using an experimental ELF receiver, described it as a sweeping wave of ordered frequency. He compared it to military sonar, or whale song. But there are no whales beneath Lake Vostok. There's no ocean, no air, no reason for anything to make sound, unless it's alive or intelligent. In 2013, the Russian government classified all raw telemetry from the Vostok site. The following year, 2 civilian research teams were denied permits to conduct independent studies near the station. A joint U.S.-Russian request for atmospheric overflight was rejected. The reason given? Aeromagnetic interference may compromise instrument stability. But those words rang hollow, because satellites had already picked up something strange. Landsat imagery from 2014 showed faint heat signatures emanating from beneath the ice sheet near Vostok Station. Not geothermal plumes, linear lines, symmetrical shapes, a pattern that repeated in a curved arc, nearly 4 kilometers wide. Geologists claimed it was likely radar shadow artifacts, but 2 independent analysts from ESA disagreed. One called it an anomaly consistent with large-scale subglacial infrastructure. The report was never officially published. Then came the blackout. In 2016, the European Space Agency ceased releasing thermal data over Lake Vostok, without explanation. Archived data from prior years was quietly pulled offline. Today, only generic thermal overlays remain. What were they hiding? Around the same time, strange behavior was reported among wildlife along Antarctica's coast. Mass strandings of emperor penguins, navigation failures in migratory birds, and the sudden collapse of seal populations along regions closest to the Vostok magnetic anomaly. Biologists speculated climate change, but others noticed a disturbing correlation. Each event coincided with signal spikes recorded from the Vostok borehole. Nature was reacting to something beneath the ice. In 2018, a private satellite company attempted to launch a micro-imaging drone toward the region. The launch was blocked by the Russian government. When the company's founder spoke out in a public forum, he received a cease and desist order within 72 hours. He never spoke of it again. Today, the signals from Lake Vostok continue, still pulsing, still rhythmic, still unexplained. Some believe they are natural, the product of ice compression or trapped geothermal heat. Others believe they are biological, that we are hearing the heartbeat of an ecosystem locked away for millions of years, an echo from before the rise of man. But a smaller, more secretive group holds a different belief, that the signal is not from Earth, and that Lake Vostok is not a lake at all, but a boundary, a seal, a door, one that was never meant to be opened. The deeper they drilled, the quieter the reports became, but the silence wasn't empty. It was orchestrated. Someone was pulling the strings, and someone else began leaking. It began with a name that never made the official papers. Dr. Sergei Andropov, an Arctic microbiologist, assigned to Vostok Station in late 2011. He left 6 weeks later, unannounced. No farewell, no debrief, no trace. 3 years later, an encrypted blog post appeared on a dark web science forum. The writing was clinical, precise, but riddled with fear. The author claimed to be a Russian biologist stationed at a subglacial drilling site. They described something no scientific training had prepared them for. They wrote, "There is movement beneath the lake, constant, but directional. It follows us." Another line read, "Contact protocol initiated at 0400. Subjects responded. This is not microbial." The post was deleted within 12 hours. The forum went offline for a week. When it returned, the user's account and all their uploads were gone. Months later, another leak. This time from a South Korean technician embedded with a European satellite telemetry team. He published magnetic data patterns that mirrored artificial EM signatures. When rotated and compressed, the signal formed something bizarre, a fractal wave, identical to neural firing patterns in mammalian brains. He was found dead 2 weeks later, an apparent suicide. The data was erased from all servers, but a backup resurfaced in 2021, uploaded anonymously. The title was simple, "The Lake Thinks." What could that mean? In 2015, a U.S. contractor working for a joint Antarctic research program came forward under a pseudonym, Martin. In a private interview, he described a protocol briefing before deployment to Antarctica. Part of that protocol, he claimed, involved exposure to non-human acoustic patterns, not for research, but for psychological acclimation. He said they wanted to see if we'd crack before we got there. Some of us did. He described sounds, deep vibrations like whale calls, but with modulation that resembled speech. Only, no language, just emotion. He said the sound felt like it was thinking at you. His file was later redacted in its entirety. His identity, still unknown. What kind of operation requires exposure to non-human acoustic signatures? And why simulate it, unless they expected something real? Officially, nothing exists beneath Lake Vostok except water, pressure, and time. But the testimonies say otherwise, and they're not alone. In 2017, a group of Chilean researchers conducting auroral measurements from a base over 1,000 kilometers away picked up unexplained low-frequency pulses matching the 18-minute Vostok rhythm. They triangulated the source. It led directly to the lake. Then, the pulses stopped, as if something new. A retired Norwegian glaciologist later claimed that he was once denied access to ground-penetrating radar data near Vostok because the readings had been flagged by intelligence agencies. When he asked why, the response was chilling. Because you don't have level 5 clearance. Since when does glaciology require military-level clearance? Later that year, a whistleblower from the Russian Federal Security Service, posting under the codename Volk, claimed that Vostok Station had become the site of an observational quarantine, not to protect the lake, but to monitor it, to watch it. He claimed the lake was not simply responding to outside activity, it was initiating. He wrote, "There is communication. It does not use words. It uses pattern, resonance. It waits until we are listening." Even more disturbing, Volk alleged the presence of an object beneath the lake bed, something metallic, geometrically symmetrical, not natural, and not ours. That same year, satellite scans detected faint electromagnetic emissions from the same coordinates, exactly 1 hour after the borehole reopened. Coincidence or response? One fragment of Volk's final post read, "The lake does not contain the anomaly. The lake is the anomaly." After that, he disappeared. No further posts, no proof he ever existed, but his words echoed through every conspiracy circle and research blacksite alike. Then came the so-called second contact. This one, allegedly confirmed by intercepted communications between French and Russian Antarctic assets. Though never authenticated, leaked transcripts refer to Phase 2 echo signals and unclassified neural interference. One message reads, "Containment breach unlikely. Psychological drift remains minimal. Recommend continued observation only." Psychological drift? Is that what happened to the scientists at Vostok? Because not long after, another defection occurred. A young climate scientist from Germany, Dr. Elsa Mertens, resigned mid-deployment after claiming she experienced dream sequences tied to non-local perception. She described seeing herself in third person, underwater, surrounded by light. Her final entry before disappearing from public view read, "The ice remembers. It teaches you to hear." To hear what? By 2019, Vostok Station had installed a classified seismic shield around its perimeter. No announcement, no reason given. When questioned, Russian officials simply called it instrumental reinforcement. But why would a seismic station need shielding, unless something beneath it is no longer staying still? The signals from Lake Vostok continue, not daily, not even predictably, but each time they occur, the same sequence follows. Satellites reroute, access logs are purged, thermal data is blacked out, and always, someone leaks, a whisper, a sentence, a warning, from those who heard it, from those who saw it, from those who broke protocol and never came back. Lake Vostok is not a frozen lake. It is a frozen transmission, a call across time, or perhaps a message waiting for a response. Long before satellites, before drilling, before humans knew Lake Vostok even existed, something was already there. In 2001, during an aerial geophysical survey, a team from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory captured unexpected radar echoes while flying over the East Antarctic ice sheet. Most signals returned with expected uniformity, the predictable bedrock signatures of ancient glacial terrain. But near Vostok Station, one signal bounced back, differently, stronger, sharper. It didn't match ice or rock. It matched metal, a structure. Not a geological feature, but something with 90-degree angles, something symmetrical. The report, filed internally under Project Atlantis Subglacial, was never released, but a leaked summary described a large, highly reflective subsurface anomaly consistent with engineered material. The estimated size, over 100 meters long, perfectly level, buried deep beneath the lakebed. That was the moment the mission changed. Suddenly, drilling timelines were accelerated. Russian research teams received classified equipment from off-continent sources. New faces arrived at Vostok Station, not scientists, but security. Satellite coverage over the area became restricted. Someone knew what they were looking for. In 2003, British Antarctic survey teams working from a separate base noticed something strange while scanning for subglacial volcanism. They detected a recurring pattern, concentric magnetic ripples, radiating outward from the Vostok anomaly. The ripples were pulsing, like a heartbeat, but even stranger, they followed a perfect Fibonacci spiral. That's not how geology works. That's how intelligence works. Reports from that period mentioned something else, a lattice grid. Anomalous readings suggested a polygonal formation under the ice, stretching several kilometers. The symmetry was too precise for natural origin, too clean, too architectural. When this data reached the public, it was quickly discredited, labeled instrumental distortion and processing error. The scientists who discovered it were reassigned, their radar files quietly deleted. But fragments remain, and what they show is chilling. A dome, beneath the lake, perfectly round, perfectly silent. Some called it a cavern, others a vault. Then came the whistle from within. An anonymous engineer, embedded with the Vostok seismic team, claimed to have seen the full readouts. He described a multi-chambered cavity beneath the main anomaly, a hollow chamber, shaped like a spiral shell, not solid, but designed. When asked why he believed it wasn't natural, he answered with one word: resonance. He said that when they ran harmonic tests to measure bedrock density, the chamber resonated back, not like stone, not like water, but like a tuned instrument. It gave off overtones, something built it. And then, the patterns began. At first it was just noise, overlapping frequencies recorded during seismic mapping. But when layered together, the harmonics produced images, fractal geometries, repeating glyphs, like language, but not one we could read. One linguist from an affiliated university analyzed the waveforms. She said the patterns resembled ideograms, similar to ancient Sumerian pictographs, but more abstract, more compressed. And then she made a comparison that caused the entire file to be pulled from the archive. She said the symbols matched those found on the Vostok disk, a Bronze Age artifact whose meaning remains unknown to this day. Is it coincidence or continuity? The architecture beneath Vostok raises an unsettling possibility that something ancient once lived here, not just on the continent, but below it. And it left behind a message, a construct, a chamber encoded with thought. But who, or what, built it? Some theorists believe Lake Vostok was once open to the surface during a warm period over 100,000 years ago. That something or someone used that window to build, to seed, or to bury. There are legends, scattered across human memory, of a vast southern land beyond the known seas, a forgotten realm under ice. H.P. Lovecraft called it the Mountains of Madness. Plato hinted at it in the lost continent of Atlantis. The Hopi spoke of the Sipapu, the underworld gateway. An ancient Vedic text describes subterranean cities of light, unreachable by normal means. What if they were all remembering the same thing? In 2020, using newly declassified satellite data, independent researchers produced a 3D reconstruction of the Vostok anomaly zone. What they revealed shocked the community. Not only was the main structure geometrically exact, it was aligned with the magnetic South Pole and the galactic center, a coincidence that only occurs once every 26,000 years. The implication? Whoever built it was not guessing. Some believe the structure beneath Lake Vostok is dormant, a vault sealed by design, waiting. Others believe it is a form of machine, biological or otherwise, and that the signals we've been receiving are not warnings, but invitations. Still others fear the worst, that it's not a relic, it's a prison, and the ice was the lock. If so, someone is turning the key. And as the drills push deeper, the resonance grows louder. The borehole was complete, the ice had been pierced, and whatever boundary had held for 15 million years was broken. February 5, 2012. The Russian team at Vostok Station announced they had finally reached the lake, but no video was released, no water samples shared. Just a carefully worded message: we touched the lake. Touched, not studied, not explored. As if contact was enough, as if anything more was forbidden. Then came the silence. For 5 days, all outbound transmissions from Vostok ceased. No voice, no telemetry, no signal. The official story blamed equipment issues, but internal documents, leaked years later, told a different tale. Between February 6th and 10th, every automated sensor at the station recorded anomalous data. Magnetic field spiked to over 4,000 nanoteslas. Atmospheric pressure inside the station dropped, despite sealed systems. And low-frequency sound, below the threshold of human hearing, filled the structure. A hum, constant, rising. One entry in a restricted log reads, resonance intensifying, staff disoriented, drill team unresponsive, awaiting further instruction. What happened in those 5 days? No one will say. But when contact was re-established, everything changed. A new rotation of personnel arrived. Most of the original team was flown out and never spoke again. Official press releases praised the mission as a historic achievement, but no meaningful data followed, just more silence. Then, quietly, the borehole was sealed. Why? If this was humanity's first glimpse into an untouched alien ecosystem, why stop there? Why seal it? Why walk away? Unless what they found told them to. In the months that followed, something even stranger happened. Multiple global monitoring stations, from Canada to South Africa, began detecting low-frequency oscillations resonating from beneath Antarctica. They pulsed every 72 hours. Each pulse grew louder and deeper. Scientists were baffled. The signals didn't originate from the Earth's mantle. They didn't match glacial movement. They didn't correspond to seismic events. Instead, they aligned with something else. The lunar cycle. Some began calling it the Vostok pulse. Others avoided it altogether. Satellite data from 2013 onward shows thermal fluctuations radiating outward in concentric rings from the lake region. But these aren't geothermal. The heat patterns move, in perfect timing with the pulses, almost like a heartbeat. Something beneath the ice was waking up. Then came the incident. October 2016. A private expedition team, funded by a university consortium in Europe, was en route to conduct atmospheric studies near the Vostok exclusion zone. They never arrived. Their last transmission. Atmospheric distortion increasing. Instruments failing. We are not alone. No wreckage was found, no bodies, just empty snow. 3 months later, the Russian government expanded the Vostok restricted perimeter by 50 kilometers. No reason given. No objections allowed. By 2018, US and Chinese satellites were actively avoiding the region. Not technically, but operationally. Their orbital paths had been reprogrammed. Why? To conserve battery life, according to one press official. But engineers disagreed. They claimed the real reason was electromagnetic interference. Satellites were losing memory. Transponders were going dark. Every time they passed over Vostok, what kind of interference erases memory? In 2021, a final leak changed everything. A data technician from an undisclosed European intelligence agency released portions of an internal briefing titled Cognitive Contagion, Secondary Risk from Vostok Contact. The document described a phenomenon wherein exposure to certain acoustic frequencies, specifically those originating from beneath Lake Vostok, caused temporary neurological disruption in listeners. Symptoms included disassociation, intrusive thoughts, hallucinations of submerged light, recurring dreams of circular architecture under pressure, sudden fluency in unknown symbols. But the final paragraph was the most damning. It read, "Subjects exposed to Class 5 signals report a sense of being observed, not from above, but from beneath. Observed, watched, understood." This wasn't exploration. It was awakening, or worse, acknowledgement. Since then, Vostok has remained off-limits. No new expeditions, no international collaboration, no drone flights. Just a void, sealed beneath 2.5 miles of ice, and a silence that grows louder with time. What is Lake Vostok? A lake? A vault? A buried transmitter? Or something older than language itself? Whatever it is, we were not meant to open it, and now, we can't close it. The ice still groans. The pulses still come. And somewhere, far below, in a chamber carved by something not quite natural, something is listening, waiting, and thinking. And in the end, it wasn't what we found beneath the ice that terrified the world. It was what found us. Lake Vostok was never the end. It was a door, and the signal is leading somewhere higher, to Dome A, to the Antarctic Crown. In the next episode, the Antarctic Crown, the ancient gate, we follow the resonance, to where the ice remembers, and where something beneath is waiting.